First off, here's sort of the prototype of what the sculpt's going to look like. It's going to be way bigger than the original. If you remember, the original was this size.
That one still looks good.
We now do our toys at 7 inches. So
yes.
Digitally remastered, but it's going to be bigger. Not only that, we're going to put it in super sexy packaging. What does that mean now for this Kickstarter? It means you're going to get something that is going to be like this, probably be much bigger because the cape is going to get wider, so it's going to be bigger. But I just wanted to show you, you're going to get something here. You're going to push the box in, and you're going to have a slip cover. So you're going to pull the slip cover off, and then you're going to have your box. Going to have graphics on it. It's going to be nice. You open up your graphic, and inside you're going to have your box here, and it's going to be all foam. It's going to look super cool.
It's a sneaker box.
And
it's like the Timberland box.
One of the ones that's autographed.
Super cool. Sign me up, man. It's like, welcome everybody back to the Spinner Rack. I'm here with my boy Petey. You know, today we're going to be looking into the whole Kickstarter Indiegogo business, especially during this difficult time of the pandemic. Petey, hit us with your best shot. Tell us what you're talking about.
Hey everybody, so right now we're going to be looking at as Mars already said, the Indiegogo and Kickstarter markets, and we have one of the leading people on there, Ethan Van Sciver. He has his CYBERFROG project. He has almost 5,000 backers, and what would that be? That'd be like 10 times the amount of profit for that sort of thing. So this isn't like, I mean, the comic readership, if we do it in a numbers average, would be about 250,000. That was what it used to be, 250,000. So if your book kind of sold around 2,000, that was really getting close. Like the X-Men, when John Byrne was doing, was under that. It was like 175. That was their highest thing. So it was always teetering on cancellation. So this is why a lot of comic book people are like, well, that's 5,000 readers. Some of our books have 5,000 readers, and that doesn't sell. But if this is a vanity press and the fans are backing it, this is a viable, it seems like a profitable thing to start doing. And Ethan Van Sciver has about 3 different projects going on. I don't know if I have them all put together right now, but no, that's Richard Meyer, there's that. What else do I have? There's a bunch of stuff we're going to be looking at, but I guess we have to just look at random stuff now. So here we also have Richard Meyer, who has his Jawbreakers project, and I'm not sure if this is the first one. Okay, it began with Jawbreakers Lost Soul. So this is like the sequel to that. It's a graphic novel, and it had like almost like, you know, this was almost 7,000 backers, and look at the amount of sales it made. So this, at the same time, whether you looking at the amount of backers to what the comic industry would say would be a decent selling comic book, the money is the profit that you're making is very, very decent. And I feel that for like a lot of pros that aren't out in the mainstream, this would always be a strong way to find your readers. This would be a viable market to start to bring people back doing comic books, and then those books could probably go back into the stores, you know?
I think that's a great idea. But these guys also have social media accounts that are outside of just the Indiegogo and the Kickstarter, and they're bringing those people who like their stuff, and you're getting them. So, you know, these 5,000 backers, 6,000 backers, it's probably more if it was in a traditional comic book place, you know, like you were just saying before. Then so it's pretty interesting, but you have to get out there, you have to hustle, and you have to have someone, you know, either you do it yourself or being backed by someone else.
When you brought their social media accounts, that's where the gray area comes in, that you have to remember as a publisher. Then it's kind of hard to do what they've been doing, which is critiquing comic books. So that's the only thing I will say that's kind of a gray area, because do I have any Fantagraphics? Like Fantagraphics, they were the I guess the biggest place for comic book critiques, but they're also a publisher. So that's really a gray area where you're saying, I'm going to shoot down all these things, and then I'm going to. So we have touched on that before, but it's a gray area that you shouldn't really be involved in once you become a publisher. You need to move away from that. And then you can probably say what you like, but you know, as far as Stan Lee went, he would just say the distinguished competition. You kind of, you know, hit them with a blunt sword. But the idea where they're saying you guys are lost is kind of, so we touched on that. We're going to get back into the positives of this, and let's keep going through some of this. Now, Mars, I know you wanted to touch on this sort of stuff right here.
Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to touch is that, you know, Dynamite Entertainment, one of the things that they're doing, they're putting out a bunch of different products too. Some are a little older, some are a little new, but this is actually a model that, especially in this time, you figure can be used. You have what, Tucci, he's involved. You have the Vampirella project. You know, particularly Vampirella, they seem to be really pushing. She also, and here's an old campaign from The Boys. So one of the things I wanted to say is that, you know, this is just because physical comics can't be sold right now. This is a good time that, you know, you can have other things coming out, other derivative products. It doesn't have to be the main storyline, because of course we all know the main source of income for most of these comic book companies are the comic book stores, right? So, but this is just another way to at least keep your customers engaged, you know, because if you don't have them engaged, they're going to find other avenues to get themselves engaged. And what's going to happen? They're not coming back. So this is an excellent point to do. And, you know, like I was telling PD earlier, I said, you know, they can do like a derivative product. They can do Vampirella, but do something a little different that's not going to be, that's not normally in the comic book store. And once this whole thing is over, collect it together and put it in the comic book store, you know. But in the meantime, people who are fans of that particular comic or that particular, the toy or whatever, they've gotten it themselves, and they are going to be able to, you know, get the enjoyment that they normally got whenever they're able to purchase stuff. So, I mean, that's the point I was trying to make there. But yeah, if you can go into one of them, one of the projects, you see, some of them are not as big as our boy Meyer and even Ben Schreiber, but they're decent, you know.
So this is an old one, which is now this is not to say it has 14 backers. It's made you know, almost 2,000, and this is a while back. This is like, you know, this is last year, maybe like 9 months ago. So if we go to what's going on, is this one?
Right, and there you can see they were just dipping their toes, because if they really did a Boys campaign, I think it would sell out a lot faster. There's a lot of people like The Boys, especially now that it's on Amazon. It's on one of the top trending shows.
But now here is that Stargirl presents Vampirella. We have a project here, and that's well past its goal. It had a simple goal of 500, and it's past 15,000 right now. So that's and it's just started. It's just started. Right. That we can we'll just basically, they usually have an ad that you can also see on.
Hello, all living and dead. It's Anna, also known as that Star Wars girl. And today I am very excited to talk to you guys about my very first Indiegogo campaign. Now, as you can see, here is my Vampirella cover. I'm so excited to show you guys, as well as a very, very, very special variant, which is the old Hollywood classic Universal Monsters theme Vampirella in black and white.
Obviously, this is engaging.
Right.
This has pulled us in, and this is first I've met that Star Wars girl. But this is what you can sort of do, and you have sort of this sort of, I mean, it's not, at the same time, right now, it's still sort of a vanity press, but at the same time, there's some big money involved. So let's keep going through this quickly. He also has Pandemic, another book that's coming out, and it's past its goal. It has almost 1,500 backers. It's at the past, it's like it's almost 37,000. It's doing pretty well. And let's quickly watch one of his videos quickly.
Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and if this video is a surprise to you, it's a surprise to me too, because this project did not exist. Well, not 24, about 26 hours ago. So yeah, the world moves very fast, probably faster than ever. So art and critique and thoughts and action should catch up. So
that's one of his videos, but that one isn't as big as his other one, but that's well past its goal. What it costs, I guess what it would cost to make that book, it's
right.
Pretty well. So let's keep going. Here's CYBERFROG connected with Ethan Van Sciver. So you have The Vengeance of Vampirella with CYBERFROG 1. And that's doing that. I think it hit its goal. It's, you know, it got like over 500 backers, and his classic style, which reminds me, you look at his early stuff, it looked more like Todd McFarlane, but this is sort of a mix between Brian Boland and George Perez. The inking closer to, say, Brian Boland, but that sort of detail.
Yeah, the detail is definitely great. I mean, that's one of the things people like about Ethan Van Sciver.
Yes.
And, you know, he's definitely, you can see, you know, Dynamite, by teaming up with him, they're going to move more product because his customer base, who's used to him being on Indiegogo, you
Yes.
know, they're going to be more knowledgeable. And I think this is what the companies have to do. They have to be out there more often. You have to have a campaign, just like, you know, when they have a star and they have a book author, you know, they come out in different medias and they push the stuff that they're trying to sell. You're going to have to start doing this more often online, you know. I remember when bloggers would be selling particular things, so they'll have blog conferences where you'll go to different blogs and press conferences, and each one you'll talk about your particular product you're selling or moving. Here the same thing goes, you know, even Van Sciver, he has a huge YouTube following, you know. And the same thing goes with the other guy, David Meyer, right?
Yeah, so you have Ethan Van Sciver, he has like 12 campaigns that have been profitable. And let's just quickly go back to, if we can, let me see, Jawbreakers. He has 8 campaigns that have been profitable. So it's like they're just at the start of where, so we're not sure if this is the peak or they've gotten to their base, but they're starting off really strong.
Yeah. I mean, look at the backers. That's the key thing there too. When you have enough of a backer to spread it out. I mean, when you have a small number of backers, you know, that's pretty hardcore following. But here, when you have 6,500, that's a pretty relative in these pretty broad-based group of people who are interested in the stuff that you're doing. You know?
So then we also have another Richard Meyer campaign, which is Ironsights, Two Psychos. It's another graphic novel. It's a part of one of his things. I'm going to just keep rolling through this. And this is another one that didn't hit its backers, which was Brigade. And this is early on. Look, that's 2018. That didn't really find its mark, but you can see Rob Liefeld, he had one campaign and he did his Brigade on there. And I think this is before he had what was that thing? The Netflix thing when it was announced on Netflix. Let's play this for a second. Let's see. Oh man. Wow, he's going for it there. So
yeah, he is going for it. And I mean, I think he did do it. I think, but if you take a look, initially he had 8,000 backers. I mean, $8,000 and 156 backers. But at the very end, it came up to a lot less, like 3,725, like only 60 backers. Something must have happened. I don't know what happened in terms of the product or in terms of, you know, people changing their minds and end up backing. If you have a strong following like the Van Sciver and the same thing goes with Meyer, it won't make that much of a difference. You do expect a drop off, but nothing like that.
But that's another thing. There wasn't, like, Rob has a big Twitter presence and some Facebook, but he hadn't really sort of monetized his fans. And we're going to get to some of bigger creators monetizing their fans in a second. So
right.
Now this is Graham Nolan. He was a Batman artist. Graham Nolan was a Batman artist. He did a lot of the stuff post Nightfall, and he was one of one of DC's Batman artists for the time. And he's moved over to Indiegogo, and this is his return to Monster Island. When I found out of this, I was like really upset because I'm a fan of his art. But this is a quick one. We won't go through the whole thing. And OminousPress has a bunch of stuff we're going to show too.
Hi, comics and monster fans. I'm Graham Nolan. You probably know my work from my years of working at Marvel and DC Comics. I'm the designer and co-creator of the Batman villain Bane. I've recently partnered with my friends at OminousPress to bring you the 20th anniversary edition of Monster Island. And thanks to all of the backers that supported the project, it was a great success. And we can finally bring to you the long-awaited sequel, Return to Monster Island. It's been 20 years in the making, and I think everybody's been patient long enough.
Yeah, I came onto the boat on this one a lot. So I would say it really pains me to see this up there because I miss both of them.
It's a pretty interesting product. It's a good commercial. One of the things they say, you have to have a good video. I mean, of course, not everybody is their own kind. Meyer, Van Sciver, they don't really need as much of a video, but some of the others are pretty good. And this one, clearly, you see, he did make his goal. And hey, $32,000 for comics is nothing to sneeze at, and 380 backers is not bad at all.
Yeah,
you know, so it's But all we're saying is that imagine if they could come out with the comic book company should come out with like a derivative product. It doesn't have to be the main comic, like you know, instead of doing an X-Men comic, probably you'll focus on Jubilee or probably one of the more subsidiary characters in the interim. You know, so people who are X-Men fan will at least get something, a story, a character to be built on, to work on until you come back. You know,
we got to go to Todd McFarlane because he said to give the current stuff to online, put the comic books online, whatever you have in the can, and then sell them later because it's like they're sitting at home. You want to feed that drive and feed that hunger because they could be, it's an addiction and they could go somewhere else to get something else from that. So here's Todd. We can watch it actually going up while we're sitting here. Like, this is crazy. Like, it's literally, it's well past it for the action figure, and he has a lot of cool effects in here. And that's one of the things that I was kind of bugged. If you look at Richard Meyer, he was kind of jokingly critiquing it and talking about Todd McFarlane in a fun way. But, you know, I don't have any problem with these videos.
Hey, everybody, this is Todd McFarlane. I used to work for Marvel and DC comic books. I did comic books, did a little bit of Batman, did a little bit of Hulk, co-created Venom, and then sort of made my career on Spider-Man. But after that, a handful of us started a new company, and this was the character I created, Spawn. It's now been running for over 300 issues. We now own the Guinness Book of World Record for the longest running creator-owned book. But if some of you remember, back in 1994, I started a toy company. In 1995, my first toy came out. This is what it looked like right here, right? You look at some of the packaging. This is one of the original pieces here from 1995. But now we're first Kickstarter.
Toys didn't look like that
because
before
the store
then.
we used to sell to way back then, Babbage's, Tower Records, all those ones that we used to sell to, KB Toys, all those have gone out of business. It's getting more and more difficult to sell a toy direct to the stores and only give them one at a time. I'm going to now give you the toys that they won't put on the shelf. We're going to sell them to you exactly as we think that they should be. Here's what we have for you with our very first Kickstarter. I basically went out and I got the license for the toy because I own Spawn, and we're going to basically come out here and do a digitally remastered version. So what is that going to look like?
Hey, so Petey, here we are. What are you showing us now?
No, this was just a special edition. It's an old one. Look at how much money it made for this. It's a Hellboy character. It's actually from this book that's here, which is let me see this. I'll have to put a picture up. But I have it here, and at the same time, this is actually a studio edition hardcover book. Which I mean, we only play a couple seconds. What does this have on there?
Good evening. I'm Gary Gianni here again to welcome you to another presentation of the weird and the unusual. Of course, it's 2017. Or is it? Who can say? Perhaps it's 1862, when much of the 19th century was still cloaked in the unknown and the superstitious. A time when the natural sciences were still in.
So when he took that mask off, his voice sounded a lot better. So he's I think a friend to Mike Mignola. He did his book called The Monster Men. So this is a very accomplished artist, and he did a hardcover book, a larger studio book, which looked like it was in black and white. So that looked like it was a successful campaign. 1,000 people went to it. We have Bill Tucci, his classic character, which is She, which is Return of the Warrior. That's another one that was out there. We'll just quickly Look at their YouTube. Oh, this one is real dynamic. If you remember this character, you have to know this character with the fans. There's even one with Daredevil. So let's stop that.
And we see that it's also being used in one of the Dynamite campaigns also.
Yes. Yeah.
With Vampirella, I believe it was. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting there. You know, so you have these authors, writers, or these creators where they are, you know, they're trying a lot of different things. Oh wow, Starlin.
Yes, that's his classic Dreadstar comic book. Post when he finished his last, I think post the death of Captain Marvel, he did Dreadstar, and it was a very popular book in the 80s. And I think, let's see quickly, OminousPress, they've been doing a bunch of these, and they have, I think they're producing a couple of.
Hi folks, Jim Starlin here. You may know me from the guy who created Thanos, the Infinity Gauntlet.
We know you.
The Destroyer, Gamora.
So
a few other things here and there.
Ultimately, we want you to also check these things out because they're on there and they found an audience. This only has like almost 700 backers, and it made a decent amount of money if you get that on.
You got to see how much the things they're paying for. Some of you're not paying. Some of these things are not going for $4.95, you know, or $5. Some of them you're going for.
That'd be like $100 book.
Yeah, so some of these are big omnibus books, but if you're a real fan, this is something that you're interested in, you know, so just be aware of that. So that's why you see relative to the amount of backers relative to the amount of numbers. So you're like, oh, $6.77 and $5 a pop. No, it's not like that. It's a lot more than that. So just be realistic when you come through.
Look at what you got here. You get, for the perks, you can get a couple of things, but then actually when you get to the big ones, you get to the printed, we spend $90, that'd be the cost of getting the actual omnibus, right? So that's where the price point actually is.
Right.
Like 12 people claimed that one, and 91 person claimed the other one. And then going up, you have a couple people that claim some of that, some with the variant, 11 for the definitive collection. Like the people, as you go up, you're seeing it's picking up. People wanting the full deal. Like, look at all of that.
Yeah.
You know, then even the 600 with the figure. You know, that's good to have even 3 people on there. So I mean, it's a nice spread within the amount of stuff, and that's what we hadn't touched on was sort of the perks, where perks also lead you to get to the book, and/or you're getting a variant and you're supporting the book. So there's a 2 different things. Some people are buying the book this way, and some people are just supporting. So then Mars wanted to look at IDW Publishing. They have 6 campaigns, and this is one of theirs, which was a while back.
Yes, a while back.
So this shows you that the comic market could, as Mars was saying, go into this forum and start to see where the, you know, some things, just sort of test the waters. Now, I don't want Marvel and DC to go this way because, especially Marvel, they're known to flood the market. And I don't trust them to ruin it. That's what they normally would do, would just keep, you know, oh, DC's doing less, we're going to pump out more books.
The only problem with this, I think that we just have to tell everybody is that, you know, you place the order, a lot of these things are physical comics. So you will only be able to get it once the market opens up once again, right?
Well, not with the Richard Myers stuff. You're saying with the Richard Myers stuff, they're actually publishing it and shipping it. They're doing all the work. So
right, so they're still doing that. All right, so it's interesting. I just thought some of them would need to have the publisher open and stuff like that, but Richard Myers taking care of it.
Well, just like OminousPress, they're actually sending you the books. These creators, and this is early. See, early here we had Graham Nolan, who's had a couple successful ones. This is one of his lower ones, but it didn't make its goal. But at the same time, you see him work later, and he had one that hit. So it's something that, you know, that you had to stick with it, and you'll get your audience, because we'll start to see Chuck Dixon later. So we keep going. We got Chuck Dixon, and then we have him with a successful campaign here of Airboy. There's a couple of them. There's at least 2 of them, but he has, I'm not sure this is under him, but this is when he first started writing, he wrote Airboy, and this is him returning to it. And then what else do we got? We're gonna click now. Mars wasn't necessarily with this, but Dan Beretin, he's one of his classic books he did with DC, but it was actually his creator-owned book. It was something that he, it was a 6-part issue thing, and he, look at the amount of his goal is a well, you know, like was it? I guess you could say he's over 3 times his goal. And you got Giant Killer, which I was a big fan of the comic and most of his work. We'll just quickly play that. They're going for it here. This is like Godzilla. Yep, they're going for it with his
More produced videos than others. You know? Like you have Starlin, all he does is just show up and Todd McFarlane, but here you have a produced video basically coming forward.
Yep. And this is the one that was this for me was a big shocker. Now, Jim Lee goes the way of Indiegogo regularly because he was doing this backpack for comic collectors. And this, I mean, looking at the number of backers is almost like 1,500. When this was going on, the numbers were just shooting up. This is, I think, no, Richard Meyer was doing his thing at that point, but Jim Lee came in and he really started they got the video going. But yeah, this was a surprise for me to see him do this. And, you know, his bag was successful.
Yeah, very successful.
He did Spawn. And this is an artist who used to do Catwoman. Now, this has got 5 days to go. It's, I'm not sure if anything's happening with it. So this is one that not as far as wanting them, but seeing someone right around this time doing that. So you have someone has a project out here, and he's a classic artist. And I'm not sure if it has any backers yet, but this is sort of thing you could try to do. And what else we got? And this is Robin Schneider and Steve Ditko. Now Steve Ditko's gone, but she's done a number of projects where she has these goals and they're very close to the goal. So they're like maybe twice or maybe, this is only a little over two times the goal. So
yeah, but that's so good. You have to be realistic. I think some of these guys start off, you have to have a Kickstarter that does well. If you have a very ambitious goal, you have to first develop your audience and your market before you start doing that. You can't out the box have ask for 55,000 when you've never done one before. You have to first develop slowly enough. And, you know, again, increase your customer base. Show them why this is a very important value proposition. Just something that they're interested in. Because we got to always remember, the other forms of media that people can get into, you know, and, you know, comic book is one of many. From reading books, TV, video games, Netflix, so, you know, all kinds of stuff.
Well, sorry.
So you can't say movie theaters right now.
Well, this is one of the things where he was self-publishing this stuff, and then they're still self-publishing, obviously, but now I believe, how many projects can we see how many? Can't see how many projects they have, but they've done a number of projects on Kickstarter. And here we're going to see Omni Press, which I think when we met Ron Mars, they had Dread Gods out there. They had Demigod with some of his classic collaborators. We had the Black Book, Daryl Banks, who used to do the Green Lantern, and there's a couple books down here. So Omni Press has really, been here. Look at this. They had 666 backers here. So something where they can comic. Now this is one I back, but it isn't out yet. Was one of my favorite artists, Body Bags, and he did some things on Facebook. It's still not out yet, but it's something I'm hoping it will come out soon. But it hit its goal. Like, look at that. They had almost 500, and it's almost 40,000. And this is another one I bought, which is a set of prints from the late great Bernie Wrightson, and that had almost 500. It's almost, and the pledges almost 80,000. That is classic thing that he. It was a book that he did with Stephen King, which was basically doing the cycle of the werewolf every month. Like, since obviously in movies they just transform all the time, They were literally doing it like the month would change and this would happen in the month. It's a very small novel, but it's a very nice and dark one, especially with.
Interesting. That's an interesting concept. Once a month.
Yeah, they also gave it a calendar, but then when you put it in your house and you're like, oh, this is kind of rough. I don't know if you want this calendar at home, but for me it was like, yes, I found it because I've been looking for it. I only had a small book of The Cycle of the Werewolf, but now I have all the plates. And it's really a nice addition that they portfolio that they did. So I was hoping they would do more because he also has portfolios for his Frankenstein. But that's a decent overview of showing you all the creators that are either had ones in the past, some that weren't as successful, some that are going on now, and some that are successful. So it's still a vanity press, and not to say that as a negative, just saying that it's not the comic readers now where it once maybe 90,000 or 100,000 readers, and this isn't number for number matchup, but just like the way subscriptions were way lower in comparison to the actual newsstand, but subscriptions was something that Marvel and DC used to do, and this is equivalent of subscriptions in my mind. But at the same time, the profit margins for subscribers is way different, with these pluses and minuses. So I think there's something there, and I think a lot of the older creators should try to find there, if they're still interested in doing art and whatnot and being in there, should try to connect with some of these places and at least try one book and see, oh, did it work out? Did I make my money? And will I, can I do this, every quarter or twice a year, or let me just do one and get it out my system, because everyone has that project that they didn't want, they wanted to complete and didn't get to.
I agree. I think that's a good point. All independent creators, especially those who are in Comic Book Alley, Comic Alley, they should definitely be jumping on something like this. I think there's also other options too, like you have webcomics, you have, and that's another discussion altogether.
Yeah, so I guess that's it. I think Mars did want to get into some more of the unknown products, but right now, just to start it up, we just wanted to see what of the known creators were out there. So I just want to put that. There's a lot more people doing Kickstarters and Indiegogos besides just the ones we've just shown.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. Spinner Rack
out.